Welcome, listeners. Welcome to Kyle and Curtis's Cult Cinema Cast. Curtis is back this week.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be back.
There was going to be someone else. They backed out because perfectly legitimate reasons. They loaned me the DVDs, so can't complain too much. Loaned me their fancy 3-disc collector's edition with the soundtrack and everything on it.
That's what you need after this film.
Oh, yeah. I watched the behind-the-scenes documentary on it, which is 8-hour 80 minutes, so... or hour 20 minutes, so I know a little bit what's going on behind the scenes.
That's good.
Yeah. So Curtis back this week. Cody will be back next week for those that are eagerly awaiting his return. So yeah, we're going over. This is our Thanksgiving special because I heard the word poultry, and it's a horror movie. So poultry. Horror movie. So Thanksgiving, which is for Canadians, is in October, so it also kind of fits with Halloween, so that always helps a little bit more.
A nice little blend.
Yeah, for those for the Americans that are confused, Canada has Thanksgiving in October. It originated as a religious holiday, but has since been made somewhat secular. It's mostly just, we mostly do the same things, really. It's just on its own thing. I think it coincides with Indigenous Peoples Day in the States, or Columbus Day, if you're still celebrating that in this day and age for some ungodly reason. And yeah, this was a movie. This is produced by Troma Studios, directed by the legendary Lloyd Kaufman, who is an icon in cult filmmaking and schlock filmmaking, he's very popular. We reviewed, me and Cody reviewed Toxic Avenger from him in the last season, and then we are going to I'm reviewing the sequel next week with Cody, so that'll be fun. The listeners voted for that too, so that's a bit of a treat for them. This was a 2007 movie, so it's a very different era for Troma Entertainment. It's actually like after a lot of the big popular Lloyd Kaufman pieces, which come to prominence later on. It's actually got a fairly good critical response. A lot of the critics really like it. 79% of Google users like this film, 6.1 on IMDb, and 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. It had limited theater runs, so it only made like $23,000 off a $500,000 budget. So I don't know if they made up for that in DVD sales, but yeah, hopefully, I guess, for them.
One can hope.
Yeah. So it was released in late 2006, 2007. It's actually it's got some similarities it's got a lot of Lloyd Kaufmanisms. It's got lots of nudity, lots of gore effects. Any thoughts on it before we get into the plot?
General thoughts. I know very little about the makers of these films, and I read the description when you sent it to me, and the title instantly intrigued me. I'm always on good for good placement of words and stuff like that, but I must say I do not know if I was entirely prepared for for what I got into. I thought we were going to be seeing some zombie chickens at a fried store. I did not expect the musical aspect and everything else that was also bundled into this little work of art.
Yeah. Stars Jason Yochanan as, I don't know if I got that right, as Arby. And then Kate Graham is Wendy. Few other actors around. Khalid Rivera plays a character named Paco Bell. Oh yeah, this is a naming convention they have in this. A lot of the names are references to fast food places. There's Caleb Ederson playing Carl Jr. Yep, obviously Khalid Rivera playing Paco Bell. The manager is the manager played by Joshua Olantunde. I think I'm getting that. I don't know. That's he's playing Denny, as in Denny's. And then there's a one woman named Rose Gavemi, who's playing Hummus. And I regret to inform you, those names are intended to be kind of like racist jokes. So there's that. There's also a character named Jared, who's a parody of Jared of Subway, who was in those commercials and
Oh god.
lost a bunch of weight and turned out to be a pedophile. But I think this movie was filmed before all that came out. But yeah, this is a pretty
So they're just ripping on regular Jared.
yeah, which is fine. It's I can't laugh at it pretty much because I mean they're making fun of a pedophile. What am I supposed? Am I gonna like? Oh, you're being too hard on that guy. No.
Oh, he.
Oh, and Kate Graham, Wendy, and RB. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. No, they're all named after Mickey for McDonald's. Yeah, I didn't realize this name convention was so deeply spread out. I think it was because, well, Wendy's a normal name. Mickey's, I heard, is Nikki the entire time, so that was a thing. And then Arby, I thought was like they were calling him Arvy or perhaps Harvey. So I missed that. That flew over my head. Seeing it in front of me. Yeah. Yeah, so this movie's pretty offensive. Yeah, there's lots of a good bit
That's
of
a good word choice,
racism.
I think.
Yeah, no, Lloyd Kaufman's have been on this kick for a while of like the anti-PC stuff, which I think I looked on his YouTube channel when I did Toxic Avenger, and he had a video called Safe Spacia or something, which is just another, oh, people are getting offended by my calling people the F slur, so we need to, they're being too sensitive. So dumb. Um, I don't know. I think I'll get into that a bit more, but it's something I've been thinking about after seeing this. It's yeah, I'll get into it now. I think like he comes. I think a lot of people get this confused. Like they look up to guys like of course Lloyd and there's a lot of guys who do these big offensive jokes, and they're like, oh, my inspirations are like, well, Lloyd Kaufman is one of them. There's Carlin's a common inspiration for them. Pryor, lots of old offensive comedians that were that fought against censorship in their day, and to this day, really, there are still people that like to censor people, or at least there's still stuff on the books, depending on where you are, about like what you can say on radio and whatnot on TV. Lloyd Kaufman's in particular is something to think about because he's still around and he is very much participating in this attitude of like, oh, PC culture is the next 50s conservative censorship, and they're treating it like it's the same thing, and I think it's resulted in a big particular political climate in the current day. I think it comes from a place of like, oh, these guys were censoring me, and now these new people are censoring me. They must be the same, when I don't think they are. It's very like, it's like back in the 80s, like 70s, if you were to say something about like dropping the F bomb and doing like a bunch of really crude jokes, you get censored by a bunch of, you got censored because like, oh, you can't say that, you're going to defile the youth and turn them into something terrible. And nowadays those guys, some of those guys are inspired by them, and they're calling people the F slur, or whatever racial or ethnic or homophobic slur you think of that day. And then nowadays they're coming up with troubles like, oh, you're censoring me, but it's not that they're censoring them because, like, oh, think of the children. It's like people are saying, oh, don't call people the F slur because I don't want you insulting me. Like, it's very much coming from internet people that don't want you making fun of them. And I think in this movie in particular, he makes a point, like, he makes some point about, like, oh, it's not even the people that I'm insulting that are trying to censor me. And I think that misses the point, but we'll get more into that later. But yeah, I think that's the gist of what I wanted to get off on there. Yeah. It's just, I don't know, it's an attitude that's gotten on my nerves as of late. Then that's pretty much all there is to it.
Ruffles your feathers.
Yeah, because it's like they think it's the same, and it's not. It's some people it's about people wanting to be treated with respect, whereas like in the things that like Carlin dealt with back in the day was a bunch of like pearl clutching people that didn't want that had some nonsense idea about like, if we show scary stuff on the television, it will make people do violent things, which is nonsense. And we know it's nonsense, but I think people wrap things up that like all positions that try to censor people are coming for that angle, and it's not necessarily true. And it's not always censorship either. That's another thing. But yeah. Anything you want to say before I just move on to the plot? I think it's
No, I think I'm good with going on to the plot. I was for watching this for the first time and not really knowing what exactly we're getting into in that. There was definitely I could definitely notice where it's like, oh man, like they are hitting on every single every single topic where I'm like, oh, we're going there, and then the next, oh no, we're adding this in. I'm like, oh, we're going everywhere. Nobody's not getting put on the block today.
yeah, I think if Cody and Victoria or Victoria were on this, they'd be getting pretty fuming at some of the stuff that happens here. They'd be
Oh yeah, yeah. I will admit that that I was like, yeah, I'll just skim over those parts.
yeah, and like Lloyd Kaufman's not a. I don't mean to say like, oh, Lloyd Kaufman is the enemy. He's not. He's just
No,
another.
no, no.
No, like there are bigger fish, frankly. Um, I think he's got like this misunderstanding, and I'm perfectly willing to engage with this misunderstanding. It's not the worst in the world. And like Lloyd Kaufman's to a degree a smarter guy than a lot of the internet trolls who would get upset about me getting upset about people using the R word in this. So because they use that pretty frequently.
Yep.
I don't know. People got used to using words like that through the 80s and 90s, through to the early 2000s, and I think people are reluctant to give that up for whatever reason. So, the plot begins. Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead. We open to a shot of burial ground for the fictional Tromahawk First Nation, which they at no point use any term that's respectful to anyone in this movie. So anytime I use a word like First Nation or gay or mental health and mental health stuff, there you can rest assured that the movie is not using the words that I am using to refer to them. So yeah, it's off of this is taking place just near the setting of most of the Troma movies of Tromaville, New Jersey, which is a fictional place. The main character RV even wears a Toxic Avenger shirt, which references Toxie as if he were real. So this is I guess canon to the Toxic Avenger universe. I don't know if, I mean, does that raise the question if Toxic can be involved? I don't know. I haven't seen Toxic Avenger 4, so I don't know if he's alive or not or whatever. Or maybe he was just out with his wife or something. I don't know. He's a person. He has vacation and stuff. I'm sure this would also take like would take place at least like 15 years after the last Toxic Avenger movie, so I don't know if he could come around to save people. Yeah, I don't know. Seems like something he'd maybe get involved with, though. Anyway, so our main characters, RV and Wendy, are dry humping in the graveyard because they're drive hunting in the graveyard. I don't have a great explanation for this. I don't understand.
I don't know if there necessarily is an explanation for it.
I mean, yeah, I mean I'd say they're Mary Shelleying it up, but this isn't nearly as edgy as what Mary Shelley did. Am I thinking Mary Shelley, right? I'll leave it in if it's right. So she says, oh, he's the best dry humper in school, and he says, oh, that's what that's what everyone on the basketball team says, and then he's like, wait, who else have you been dry humping? And that's a fun exchange. I enjoyed that. I thought that was kind of funny. It's blue, but it's not compared to the rest of the movies in the rest of the jokes in this. It's pretty tame, actually.
They didn't start out too bad.
So they have a conversation about how Wendy's ditching him to go to college. She's telling him that he should join up. He could apply too, but he's saying he shouldn't. Meanwhile, he's having trouble unhooking the bra off his girlfriend, which is a common struggle, I have heard. I guess. So, yeah, eventually it turns out he's trying to unhook it from the wrong side. I suppose if I was paying more attention, I'd been able to notice easier. I don't know. I suppose, like, yeah, most of them open from the back, don't they? Or I don't know. I don't know what the statistic is on that. We're gonna move on.
That was my theory of this film. Get confused, move on.
Yep. Yeah, he also mentions that his parents are mentally inclined. So, yeah, they use that term several times. The R slur several times through the movie for whatever reason, because that is one that people have been incredibly reluctant to give up for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's not a great term.
Yeah, no.
For some reason, people are very much sticklers on it, and I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's like, I really want to use this particular swear word. I don't know, maybe it's just that it rolls off the tongue if you really needed to, which I will admit. Anyway, there are some of these words that are just like good sounding swear words and that you need to be more creative to replace with something else. Anyway, as they're making out and they're starting to get busy, some zombie hands are reaching out from the ground and like rubbing them all over and like sticking fingers in places. One finger gets broken off in RV's ass, so there's that. And then they are broken out of this by a man with an axe stepping out from behind a sign and masturbating near them. So they run off, leaving their underwear behind, which the axe masturbator sniffs at and ends up getting violently fisted by a zombie and getting his insides ripped out.
Yep.
Which, yeah, why him and not them? I guess, I don't know, were they wanting to get involved with RV and Wendy? Was that what was going on here?
It was at this point where I realized we were in for a real treat of a film. Because going off the basis of the title, I'm like, okay, zombies, chickens, fast food restaurants, gotcha. And then the fact that this is the important things they decide to establish in the first scene, I'm just like, oh boy, all right.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of characterization for these zombies because they're not after they don't get after Wendy and RV, but they'll get after the axe masturbator, who is evil, obviously. I doubt he was going to do anything good with that axe. So maybe this is a bit of vigilante, as extra living vigilanteism. But yeah, it is quite gross, and he gets murdered, and yeah. So there's that. Then we cut to our next scene, which is a year or perhaps several months later. The Tromahawk burial ground has been bulldozed over to have a chicken restaurant called the American Chicken Bunker, which is a KFC parody, has been put over top of where this burial ground is, which has caused a big protest of vegan protesters. Actually, almost no one just protesting the fact that they bulldozed over a sacred First Nations site. Though it is brought up, they're all just like lumped together as if they'd all be protesting for the same reason. It almost seems like there in real life there would be two different protests, and maybe like they'd be aligning for a certain point. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. But they're very much amalgamated in this, and they are very much something that Lloyd Kaufman is trying to parody. And it's basically, if you've seen this joke, anything from your right-wing uncle's Facebook about how every protester is just a lazy little bum who lives at home and is oversensitive snowflake, blah, 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 blah. They're doing that. They have a bunch of signs that are double entendres. I think there's one that's just like she part cock, because they're vegans and they're trying to save the chickens. And they do show some stuff later that implies that these chickens are not ethically sourced. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really get too much into vegan stuff. It's not something for me. This is also weird because the film is anti-meat, because Lloyd Kaufman is actually a vegetarian. He's not vegan, but he is vegetarian. Something that's going on there. So he is actually also doing this as a like an anti-fast food. There's not really a hero in this movie, at least from what I can discern. Everyone's a bit of a jerk. It's not like Toxic Avenger where Toxie's fighting something. It's very much everyone's got a flaw in the movie, and they get over it in different ways, which is and the protest thing I harp on because they don't really resolve it in a way. He's just like, "Oh, this is dumb," even though I oppose everything that the chicken company is doing in this situation, both because he is a person who doesn't like meat, and he's Lloyd Kaufman's also very anti-corporate, and I presume if Lloyd really thought about it, he would be like, "No, I don't think we should bulldoze a First Nations burial ground." I think deep down he'd maybe not be cool with that. Though I can't speak for him. I don't know his position on the issue in full. But I think this idea of like, I don't know, this kind of like First Nations burial ground plot is badly done in most cases, because like it's not even a thing where like some First Nations people could be getting some work out of it, even if it's like quote unquote blood money. I think this was Poultrygeist. Like this is parodying Poultrygeist to an extent, and I don't think any that the plot on that was they built a house on top of First Nations burial ground, but I don't think that showed any First Nations people really. Yeah, it's almost like it's this weird thing where like, oh, we've decided this is a thing First Nations people will do, but it's not something that we're actually going to use to interact with the culture at all, which is lame, frankly. Like it could just be like they could have just like disturbed a witch or something. It's not something you need to be bringing them into, and it's not addressing the reality of the situation either. Yeah, it's just not a plot. I don't get. Yeah, it's not a plot I approve of, and I don't know that's being done to its best effect either way. But as for that, it's actually a pretty big protest too, like which would normally lead me to believe like this is about the burial ground getting ripped up, because vegan protests aren't that common. I don't think. I have a hard time believing there would be like a huge there's not a huge protest every time a new McDonald's is opened or whatever. Is there? I don't think so. So yeah, it's just a weird thing to do. So RV wanders into the protest. He gets a beer from some of the protesters because Lloyd Kaufman thinks this is a joke, which I guess it is because it's not serious, but it's not funny. So is it still a joke? I don't know. Yeah. So at this during while he shows up, he eventually meets up with Wendy, who is making out with another woman by the name of Mickey, who is not treated particularly well through the movie. And this is we can add homophobia to the list of phobias or isms. So yeah, they he gets really mad. He's getting dumped. He reveals that he kept the fucking zombie finger that got stuck up his ass. Which
Yep.
gross. How do you not notice? Why, and also why did you keep it? I really hope he's not so dumb to realize that's not a fancy dildo.
No, he legit thinks he knows what it is. It is.
He thinks it's a fancy dildo. Which yeah, no, I can't get into zombie stuff. It's like even as like a really glossed over version of it, I can't get into zombie stuff at all because that's a thing that people try to put out. Yeah, people try to yeah, people always try to make like zombies sexy, and no, you're never going to succeed with this. Stop trying.
There are
Stop trying to make
things. Not everything needs to be brought together in harmony. There are things that are not supposed to be put in the same bowl.
and like several groups have tried to do this. It's not even like just like a particular fandom. I've seen like Twilight knockoffs of this sort of thing. I've seen zombie harem anime knocking around. I haven't clicked on anything because the second I see it, I'm like, gross, going away, doing something else. Because like the second, even if like it's somehow like Trojan horsed on me, and it's like, oh yeah, turns out this girl's actually a zombie. And I'm like, okay, I'm gone. Goodbye. Like I'm leaving. I'm not interested anymore. That's gross.
You do you. I'll go continue living my completely normal life.
Yeah. I mean, I am an extreme case on that because I don't even think vampires are sexy either. So that's another thing.
I didn't watch the Twilight series until this summer, and I will admit, I enjoyed them more than I should have. Considering I was the stickler in school that was like, I'm not gonna read the romance novels about vampire love stories, and then here I am in the summer going like, no, Edward and Jacob, what is going on? Googling Team Jacob clothing on Amazon as I'm watching it. And then I'm like, my roommate walks in and he's just like, I didn't see anything, but never speak of this again. I'm like, okay, I understand.
I would rather have walked in on you watching porn. Because then I could at least look at you like you are normal.
And then I followed that up by watching the Hunger Games movies, and he was less than pleased with my life choices.
I mean, there is something to be said about it being a metaphor for adulthood and like the monsters and the blah 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 blah. Yeah, there's a metaphor there, sort of, if we're being generous. But no, vampires for me, it's more like I feel like you'd get through the night and then you'd freak out because you'd realize like, oh shit, she's not breathing. And it's like, oh wait, oh, and especially if she didn't tell you, if like you didn't know she was a vampire, and then like you just like wait, you happen to wake up before you and realize that she's not breathing. I was like, oh god, I need to get an ambulance. And like you'd get like halfway through a 911 phone, it's like, oh, what's going on? And that scene's never in a vampire stuff.
They only talk about the good.
So yeah, he gets into a fight with Wendy and Mickey because he has been dumped for a girl, and he is taking that very personally. He is not accepting of this new lifestyle of Wendy's, which yeah, this entire exchange is fairly homophobic if we really wanted to get into it, but we've getting into a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna assume everyone knows why this is bad and move along. So eventually he gets punched, and we get our first musical number of the movie, which uses words and is he mentions that he has a 2-inch dick, and yeah, no, it's he's not taking this well. And he decide, and the gist of this is his plan is to get a minimum wage chicken job to get revenge on the girl who dumped him, who may or may not even have been all that into him in the first place, because if she was full lesbian, but he figures that he's going to get a lot of money, and that is going to make her jealous, which is undermined by the fact that this job is probably minimum wage. I think they bring up the fact this is only a $3.50 an hour job.
No, he definitely states it. He's pretty happy about it.
Yeah, no, he thinks this is a very good idea. He does finally throw away the finger during the musical number, so there's that.
Thank God.
Yeah, oh, thank God. Although it may be did cause this whole thing, because it does sink into the ground and join with the zombies. So there's that. The N-word is also dropped during this, so add it to the list. Although this doesn't pick on black people, because he's from the 80s. He's not that far up his own ass, like I said. So he gets a job at the chicken restaurant. Very easy. We see a mutant egg also getting left in with some of the chicken stuff. So there's that. We're introduced to the other characters. Carl Jr., who is also a special effects guy for the movie. Caleb Emerson. We see Khalid's Paco Bell, which is a gay Hispanic man who isn't all that obvious from the beginning. Like they just start say, I think they picked they I think I found out by them saying he was a homo, because I was like, oh, is he gay? Is he that? Because he's not all that. So yeah, that's a thing. There's also a woman in full burqa named Hummus. Yeah. So you know what? Her portrayal is almost good, weirdly enough. Like it's not good, but it's almost acceptable. And like a very, it's almost acceptable in a, oh, this was a really well performed jazz single from the 30s, but the cartoon was very racist caricature-y. Other than that, she's almost an okay character, because she demands to be treated with respect. But I mean, they undermine this in like a 3-second scene at the end of the movie very easily. But yeah, she's almost an acceptable character, which is odd, like considering the fact that she is a Muslim woman named Hummus. So yeah, as they try throwing a whole chicken into a fryer, it starts screaming, giving us the first hint of the fact that the zombies are becoming undead. We get our scene with Jared, which I've discussed. I have no problem with it, because this guy turned out to be a pedophile. So this is the one joke in the movie that ages well, somehow. What are the odds?
Oh boy.
Yeah, he does. He is played by Troma alumni Joe Fleischshaker, who is in. I had thought he was maybe in a fat suit, but he's actually somewhat like actually that heavy, maybe.
There's plausibility that it might be legit.
Yeah, yeah, no, because I saw the behind the thing scenes stuff, and I guess he's actually that big, and they had to bring in like a stunt double to get him off the floor too, so that's a thing. But yeah, he eats a mutant egg, so yeah. Wendy walks in and asks if RV is doing this to upset her, which he is. He is doing that. That is a thing he is doing. They show a bunch of we get our evidence of this being an unethical chicken establishment. He gives off a big America speech. He gets punched in the dick by Mickey, and then he's just like saying, "Oh wait, we need to make love, not war." And then they suddenly agree with him because he's suddenly started fantasizing about having a threesome with these two in the middle of the restaurant, which results in him humping the cash register. So we get a sex scene in the middle of the movie for no reason. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Um, we cut back to Jared, who is shitting himself to death, which we get lots of shots of his of a rubberized fake behind, which is dumping stuff. Tiny sensor bars censor out the poop as a joke. They fail to kill the pedophile because after a 5-minute scene of him violently shitting himself to death, a tiny man emerges from his body so that the pedophile may live. So we can't even give the movie all that much credit for this parody. So we're not getting too much here. So yeah, he's made a big mess of the bathroom, which RV is being made to clean up because, yep, because that's believable. You'd be made to clean up that up in real life for $3.50 an hour because fast food is hell.
There comes a point in time where everyone must choose. And you have to do what you have to do, but I promise you there's times where you do not have to do.
I realize this restaurant is new, but the answer might just be to burn it down.
Yep.
Just burn it all down and start over.
Bleach and just let it be.
Salt the earth. I don't imagine that's actually going to solve your problems because I mean that's probably that's anything. So that's going to piss off the Tromahawk even more. So we get another song with RV and Wendy talking about how they love each other for no reason to like symbolize that that RV still loves her, which I'm not rooting for these two. No, I'm not doing it. You're not making me do this movie. I don't
No.
respect RV. He his entire character arc needs to be is basically that he needs to feel better about like not be okay with the girl's life choices, which yeah, which they do to an extent, but yeah. It's a big musical number with like 10 topless girls dancing around. This is a miserable scene to was a miserable scene to film. Mickey's actress cried during this because Lloyd Kaufman is an asshole.
No.
I think yeah, no, they show one of the production a producer or something talking to Mickey's actress and trying to get her back into the scene and getting to ignore Kaufman's bad directing because directing naked people is a task onto itself. I don't think I don't know, but I think that's a fair assumption because you're dealing with people in a very vulnerable position. I think that's a fair statement. I don't think anyone in this production is unionized either. So
I would highly doubt it.
he did have to pay Denny's actor another $300 to get him to finish the movie. So there's that. So this happens. It's a song called Fast Food Love. Then the General arrives, who is a parody of the Colonel. He arrives with his own bikini babes, which, I don't know, him being in this movie almost makes it weirder because, like I said, Kaufman is very much against every side that's featured in this. Like, no one's a hero in this. They're very much all assholes doing bad things. It's unclear who the real villain is because the Tromahawk are very much of the position of get the fuck off my property, and the Colonel's a bad guy because he's a corporate head and runs fast food, which is bad. And RV's not a hero because he's a dick. Wendy is portrayed as like hollow, that she's very much reactiony and doesn't know how to fix any problems. And Nikki is another thing on her own, which we'll get to. So there's no heroes here. There's no one to root for, which is a problem, I think.
Yeah, there is not a single person who you feel like, I could back them in this corner. Yeah, it's almost entirely like, what on earth? What group of people have they gathered together?
Yeah, like significant character growth would have been required from somebody, and we don't really get that. They make some another musical number. He makes some crack about red meat, which yes, it's as offensive as you're fearing. They apparently threw the bodies of the Tromahawks in the dumpster to bury them properly, quote unquote. And I'm just like, at this point, get on with it. Just get more zombie stuff. I understand that a lot of fight scenes were cut from this. Yeah, it just takes a long time to get in, which isn't helped by the fact that you don't like any of the characters. We see a giant chicken who goes to meet with RV. He takes off his head, and it's revealed that this character, who is played by Lloyd Kaufman himself, is a future RV somehow, because it's not mentioned how he shows up here. He's not a ghost. I think it's just like supposed to be a coincidence or somehow, or that bit got cut out of the movie or something.
Yeah, they do not go into it at all. They don't explain it. And they don't even seem to really care either. That's the best part.
It's trying to like signal some character growth for RV, but it doesn't work because his character arc is more geared toward him overcoming a sense of toxic masculinity, whereas this is like, oh, you're gonna waste your life here, which is what old RV is saying. So it doesn't really work because they're saying one thing, but in actuality his character growth is going in a different direction. Although I don't know what Lloyd's full intentions are. So yeah. So Paco goes into the process of masturbating into the Sloppy Joe machine because he hates this job. And he falls in, spraying hummus with blood. They now have to go here, and RB shows up right after he's cleaned up the bathroom. So there's that. They are trying to cover up Paco's death because this is the first day and it would probably not go over well with the protesters. So also Paco's eyes are intact after he gets meat grinded. So I don't know how that works. So there's mobs of customers dancing out. There's a mob of customers out front that are waiting, and they make like a joke about like, oh, get out front to go help the customers who God knows what to do. And it just turns out that they're dancing. So yeah. Yeah, they talk a lot of shit about Paco during this scene, by the way. It's at this point that it's first brought up that he is gay, and they also call him illiterate for some reason, which I didn't see any proof of that.
It just becomes a roast fest almost, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, it is kind of like roast like comedy. It's like, okay, you're just using whatever punchline you can get to and just making it most offensive, which is hit and miss for me sometimes. Like the roasts can be funny, but I don't always like the Comedy Central roasts. They can be funny, but I don't always enjoy them. I don't really I don't know if I've sat through a whole thing before, but yeah, it's just it's a particular type of comedy. So Paco possesses a sloppy Joe so he can talk to Arby. So yeah, I don't know what the point of that is. They're just he's trying to tell Arby that he needs to use alcohol to kill the zombies when they come, but is interrupted when the general walks in and he ends up eating him, eating Paco. So that's a thing. Our next scene involves Carl Jr. getting romantic with a chicken carcass, which proceeds to eat him and turn him into a zombie. So yeah, Hummus tries to save him by shoving a broom up his ass and impaling the chicken, which gets the chicken off him, which is now mutated into a red monster. So Hummus has this all happened right after Hummus finished cleaning the kitchen from Paco's death, so now it's messy again. She almost gets blamed for both murders, but she doesn't go too far. They just make some offensive jokes about her, which she does not let slide. Like when someone gets her name wrong earlier in the movie, they talk shit about. She gets mad at them, throws stuff around. She doesn't take shit from people, which and she does try to save Carl, which is good. So yeah, she's actually almost a decent character. She's probably the best female character in the movie. If you cut out a brief section at the end, it might not be. She might have been very good. She probably would have been the best character in the movie. She could have been our hero.
Mm-hmm. She was probably the closest one.
This movie almost becomes progressive a couple times, but never quite gets there. It's weird because like, I think Lloyd Kaufman knows some of this stuff, but he just didn't act on it very well. So yeah, he's Carl Jr. is sitting there dying. The general won't let them take him to a hospital, so he ends up dying. It's revealed that whiskey hurts them a little bit because Carl had tried pouring some whiskey on the chicken while he was making out with it. So, in order to appease the mob outside, the general and some of the employees take out like buckets of chicken and attempt to make a peace offering to end the protest to the protesters. They're just like, oh, it looks gross because it's now developing green green pods of goo, which the general insists are flavor pods, but is really just a sign that that the zombies are happening. So Mickey goes up to the general and starts shit talking him and takes a piece of chicken, bites into it, and is just like, "Oh, it's so good," and starts turning against the protest and gets them to side with the general because she has installed herself as a figurehead in this so that she can, at the end, undermine the protest, which she does, and it is promptly revealed that she is a plant from the general. I'm guessing to infiltrate this already growing protest that was going to happen, because it makes less sense that he would have started this whole thing. They make a joke about the general having a diaper fetish, and people start after this revelation happens, people start vomiting green all over the place. Wendy makes the general eat a piece of chicken, which he eats, but has to promptly run to the washroom, where he throws a man off the toilet so that he can lay an egg in the toilet, which hatches into a green chicken monster, which he bites the head off and leaves to slowly become a big chicken monster. At this point, after realizing that her girlfriend is a traitor, Wendy goes back to Arvy. Which, boo. Boo. No, I don't want them to get back together. Because,
There is no happy ending.
yeah, because this movie is...
At least we don't encourage it.
The blah, blah, blah. It's... Lesbianism is only there for the male audience to whack it to, I guess. And it's not even considered that she might actually feel this way. Though, I guess, within the logic of this movie, she's bi. So, yeah. Blah, 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 blah. So, at this point, these people are starting to turn into zombies. Denny gives a big story time about a chicken wreck of some sort. The general is transforming into a giant egg, which hatches into a giant chicken. Denny gets beheaded when by some of the employees, who are the two ones that aren't main characters, that are just two random women. And then the zombie part of the movie starts happening in full. Everyone's transformed. We get a lot of restaurant related murder. People are getting shoved into things. There's a image of like someone getting their face torn off, which, fun fact, she sat in that makeup for 9 hours for no reason.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, no, she was she could not see in that because it's they put the eyeballs over top of her eyes, so she couldn't see for 6-9 hours.
Oh,
I think
people.
Yeah, no, in the behind the scenes things, it's like saying 2 in the afternoon, and she's like, if I'm here till 9 p.m., I'm gonna get pissed. And then they show her at 9 p.m. and then they show her getting the shot done at 11 p.m. because they made Kaufman do it because she had the most inconvenient makeup, which is saying something. You'd think you'd do that first because she has the missing face, so
that's usually what you would think and you'd try to do, try to accommodate your cast and crew.
Yeah. Now, like, there to a point you can accept that that he overlooked it, but that's just an unacceptable amount of time to be in that. Like, actors already hate being in makeup, and yeah, this is just really bad. Then this is basically just like an extension of the most gratuitous murder scenes from Toxic Avenger, which was the restaurant one where he killed a bunch of people in a restaurant and used a bunch of restaurant stuff to kill people. They shove a guy in a fryer in this. Yada yada yada. And then the Cough Man comes to the rescue when he fires several of the zombies with a machine gun. He reveals that he was going to shoot up the place, and if it weren't for the zombie apocalypse, he would have. Yeah, so they really avoided one disaster with another. The guns are actually pretty useless. They only kill this one group, so they don't amount to much. So they notice that the crowd outside is turned into zombies and are amassing to break their way into the building, but they turn the open sign to closed so that the zombies won't break in. Which, I mean, the thing to do is just have I mean, the obvious joke here is just okay, you close the closed door, and then one of the customers comes in through the other door. That's just how it works, isn't it?
I hope so.
Yeah, no, yeah. In my experience, if you saw a crowd out like this and you lock the door on them, they'd go through the outdoor on your way there. So, not that I do that. The example I am referring to is one where actually it wasn't even me, it was my coworker. Didn't see the person. He closed the door and went around to close the outdoor. The guy had walked up to the indoor, pulled at the door, realized it was locked, and then went to the other door, which says out in big letters, and then walked in through that, and this was Christmas Eve.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and everyone wanted to go home, so the motherfucker just... Yeah. And nothing you can do, because at that point, okay, you got one over on us. Good for you. Get your shit and go.
Your persistence has been admired.
Yeah, no, no. And we've all been paranoid about that ever since. So, yeah. He gets distracted from finishing off one of the zombies, or one of the main zombies who's more powerful and ends up getting turned himself. Old RV, I mean, just to clarify. So they mentioned that a little girl is missing, which is just a add-on. I think there were supposed to be more scenes with her, but they didn't get filmed.
I could imagine
You'd
that.
almost, I was almost suspecting that they'd forget about her based on like the scenes that were happening in the movie, because it was just like a throwaway thing. Although I'm glad they didn't, because the little girl actor is my favorite actor in the movie. Because in the behind the scene thing, Kaufman can't bring himself to swear at a kid, so and you can tell it's pissing him off that he just like wants to swear at this kid but can't. And I thought that was very funny. Um, so Nikki tries to escape in the bird costume. Doesn't. The little girl's mother gets killed. They try to. They find Carl's Jr.'s zombie. They try to reason with him, but they don't. They try to force him to tell him how to stop the zombie. He says that alcohol kills them, but RV's an idiot, so he doesn't realize that. So he ends up. To be fair, CJ just phrases that like, RV says, "Hey, what's their weakness?" And CJ's just like, "Alcohol," and RV thinks that like he wants alcohol, so he pours CJ's flask over him. Mickey's escape attempt didn't work, so she wanders back into the building. Wendy is crying over her a little bit, so this makes RV all pissy, so he walks away, and we get our third act breakup, which compounds with our third act get together. So, yeah, he's being a tool. He eventually has to go save her from Mickey's zombie, who grows a giant chicken penis, because yeah, they make a crack about one of them being a casino owner, because First Nations, blah blah blah. The Kaufman chicken and the Mickey chicken team up. Hummus drinks a bunch of steroids to fight them off, but that doesn't do anything. She just dies on the floor. They kill off a priest character. They finally realize that alcohol kills the zombies, so they make use of a keg that some of the protesters had brought in to spray the zombies with, killing several of them. One of the zombies turns the closed sign over to open, so zombies can get into the building, dooming them. Hummus is back to life and manages to help them save a little girl in a aliens-like set, which is full of gross zombie chicken eggs. This is dumb because they're parodying aliens, I guess. We finally get meet up with the general zombie, who makes a big speech about their mistake was building a chicken restaurant, which was built on the exploitation of chickens, and combining that with the disrespecting the First Nations burial ground, and together they are rising up in the form of zombies. So, symbolism? And this is almost woke, kind of, not really, in like the most crude way you can be woke. So that's where they're going with this. It makes sense, to be fair. I get it. Like, they couldn't do it alone, so the chickens and the Tromahawk had to team up, I guess. So yeah, it's more of an explanation than what I thought I'd get. RV realizes that he has to grow up, and he admits to a bunch of his wrongdoings. They get the general to explode, and Hummus throws off her whole outfit to reveal that she is now another actress who has a suicide vest on, and then she goes to blow up the building, which allows them to escape. So that's how the zombies are defeated. They get outside and it's daytime. Oh yeah, no, I should talk about that more, because that's what really did ruin Hummus's character. She was almost something resembling a good portrayal of a Muslim character if you squinted hard enough. And let me be clear, it's not. but I was reaching for something to like about this movie.
Just one
Yeah,
positive.
no, and that's what you do when you're in this bad situation. I'm like, can I enjoy this aspect? So RV and Wendy and the little girl escape as like a happy family thing. It's daytime now. They have a conversation about how he needed to overcome, RV needed to overcome his toxic masculine attitudes, which is almost good. And then it's followed up by her with Wendy just being, "Oh, I guess we shouldn't protest," which doesn't make any sense because the corporation was doing bad things and they were trying to stop them and they should have stopped them. Like, I fail to see how her
Yeah,
goals were bad. Like, you can say she didn't go about it very well, but I don't think that she did something bad.
yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, we saw what the general did. They built over a sacred site and did unethical treatment of animals and is a corporate loser. So yeah, she didn't do anything bad. They're just complaining that she's protesting, and it's like douchey, I guess. They're making fun of her for being a woke liberal for some reason. Whatever. I don't know. Anyway, this is ended by the little girl vomiting an egg. So the car they're in flips over and explodes, ending the movie.
The perfect
Where everyone who deserved to die died. And then we get like a parody of Thriller at the end over the credits, which was apparently really annoying to film. They were filming that until like 2 in the morning. The filming setup for this is really bad, honestly. Like,
they did what they wanted to, not what they should have.
yeah, no, and he had so many extras too, so it wasn't even just like a like it's one thing when it's like 30 people, but he had 200 extras. So that's doubly bad. So yeah, movie's over. What do you give it, Curtis? What's your final thoughts?
Oh, oh man. So I feel like there's some people who might enjoy this. You know, it might be their cup of tea. It might be their
Yeah, they exist. Like, I was surprised when I looked this up. Like, the first review I saw was just like, "Ugh, finally a good Troma movie," and I'm like, "Compared to what?" Like, I watched the big popular one, which is Toxic Avenger, and that's way better than this. I gave that, like, an 8 or something.
Yeah, so for me, like I gotta put it at a 5 or lower, I'd say. Personally, because I give most people benefit of the doubt where I'll be like, you know what? I love the out there ideas, like the outside the box. Like you do you. Like if you can think it, you should make it. And this was one of the few experiences in in my movie watching world where I went through and been like, all right, yeah, like maybe you should have had this reined back a bit. But at the same time, I understand there's going to be people who enjoy it. You do you. But for me, like nah, like this has to be a 5 or lower.
I'm gonna give it a 1.
Yeah, so you're a little bit more straight up than me, but yeah, if I was a teacher and I'd give you a mercy pass, like maybe, but it would be a long talk, and I'd probably have to phone your parents to talk about it, and I would sit there and contemplate this for like the entire last part of like your semester, and then I might give you a 50. Otherwise, you're gonna get lower.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I just couldn't, I can't find anything that, like, convinces me to bring it higher. Like, anything I could accuse of
Yeah,
doing a positive version of, it ultimately squanders, so I don't even get anything I can enjoy. Like, if you really want the blood and gore, I mean, you get that in the other Troma movies. Like, I think go somewhere else. This is like, you get
take your time and watch something
yeah,
other than.
like, I'm gonna
Which makes me kind of sad because I'm not gonna lie, the title is very intriguing.
yeah, because like, Toxic Avenger is just way better at this and does everything this movie attempts to do, but better. And I think he got, like, in, like, a mood in his old age or something, I don't know.
I'd give it down there as well. Any other points I give it above the one that you gave it is just for a creative title.
Yeah.
That's that's the only thumbs up you get from me. Other than that, very, very few movies I have to skim through portions.
Yeah, I just couldn't, like, anytime I think of something like, can I give it credit for this? Not really. I guess the music, maybe, but it's not that good. Like, it's alright. It's, there's nothing I'm really, like, there's nothing I have an inkling to listen to again. Some of it's good. Like, if you really wanted to see a music video with 10 chocolate chicks in it, I guess, but, I feel like I could find that elsewhere, and pornography exists. I mean, this isn't the 80s anymore. We can't, draw people to the theaters with nudity. Like, it's on your phone, you get it very easily. Anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, no, it's just really offensive. It's not the worst. Like, I reviewed Around the World in 80's Days 1956 a couple weeks ago, and it's more racist than this. Like, I think, like, it's like that's evil racist, whereas this is like, okay, you're just being an asshole racist. So there is a difference. I wouldn't ignore that. I wouldn't ignore like that kind of racism to deal with this kind of racism, but that's not a positive statement for the film.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. So, next week, yeah, we're doing. I'm going another Andy Kaufman film. I'm gonna watch Toxic Avenger with Cody. So he's gonna be back next week. Before being out of it for a couple more weeks. So yeah, Curtis will be back in 2 weeks to do the final Halloween episode with me, and then he will be back at the end of November for another episode, which I will reveal in time.
Perfection.
So, yeah, Curtis, why don't you tell them tell the listeners where they can find you?
So if you guys want to see more of what I'm up to, you can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the JustPlainUniverse. We got a lot of wacky stuff we do there, including Pothead, your local superhero. So if you want to see more, that's the place to go.
You also do Twitch streaming.
If you want to catch me on Twitch, that's at Just Plain Cheese. Usually just plain something, you'll find something I'm working on.
Okay, and you can find the podcast at Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at KCCCC, and then you can find my personal Twitter at Lord Brokenshire on Twitter, where you can find my hot takes occasionally. I don't know, I'll post something about Star Trek later today. I don't know. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving Monday. I'll make sure this is up nice and early so you guys can listen to it on your way to Thanksgiving dinner with your relatives, which you should always cherish.
Get a nice little podcast in, then some meal and in time with the fam.
Eat a lot of turkey.
Hopefully non-zombified ones.
Oh God, I'd hope so. So yeah, see you guys next week, and that is the end of the recording.